Welcome back to another episode of the Sky Society podcast. I have a very special guest today. I am interviewing Lauren Freund. She is the social media manager of campaigns at Canva. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, it's so great to be here, Natalie. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I am absolutely obsessed with Canva. Like, I use it to do everything in my business, and anyone that interns for me, we always we'll give any of our interns that do really well on Canva get the Canva Queen title.
Ooh, love that.
And so big fans of Canva over here.
That's awesome to hear. I have also been a very big fan of it for many, many years. So it's pretty surreal that I get to work there now because genuinely a fan of it. It's so easy to use. I absolutely love it.
And I've used it for so long now that I've gotten to see the feature changes throughout the years, just all the new things. And every time there's a new Canva feature, I'm so excited because you could tell that all the new features are so they're well catered to their audience and what I didn't even know that I needed. And then Canva comes out with the feature for it.
Totally. We come out with so many. When I started working there, I realized how many features we come out with so often. And first of all, it blows my mind how quickly our teams are able to pump out those features or updates. But yeah, we really take into consideration, whenever someone has feedback, to implement it as quickly as possible. So it's super awesome. And I think that's another reason that I love it so much, is because it really feels like I had a part in creating it, because they really do take people's feedback and create amazing updates and features with it.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll stop Canva fangirling for a minute because I want to get into your story. So Lauren has a really awesome story from college to where she is now at Canva. You've done a ton of internships and then went on to work at Taco Bell and then to Shutterfly. But I want to start in college, and I don't normally do this, but for you, I'm making an exception because Lauren had 11 marketing internships in college. 11. Absolutely insane. Literally so crazy. So I would love to hear a little bit about those internships and the process of you getting them and why you did it, because that's super rare and super awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you first off for that compliment. I did start very young with internships and kind of busted them out just because marketing is such a huge umbrella. And I think, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes okay, I think I want to go into marketing, whether you're recently graduated or you're going to college and choosing a marketing major. And then once you get to learn a little bit more about it, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many different avenues I can take this. And from back when I was in high school, actually, I took my first marketing class. That's when I fell in love with it. I did one or two internships in high school just to solidify, I think I want this to be my major. So then when I got to college, I made sure to continue that streak of in spring semester or during the summer. I think I even did a few in the fall too, to just explore as much as possible. Because, there's so many facets of it. There's PR and there's events and there's social media and there's, media buying and planning. And I just wanted to make sure that while I was in school, having a formal education on what this stuff was, I was also in the real world trying it out for myself. Because with anything, learning in a textbook is very different than doing it in real life. So that's kind of what got me started on my 11 streak internships. But it was super helpful in getting to where I am today and figuring out what I like and what I didn't like.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think that more people probably wish that they did that in college, looking back of I wish I had that experience, because once you start applying to jobs and you realize that you don't have it, it's tough. And so if you are listening and you are in college, definitely do internships. In my opinion, it's so much more valuable than what you learn in school. I also did a bunch of internships, and I remember being in class in marketing and learning, being this is so different than what I'm actually doing at my internship. I'm learning one thing but doing something completely different. And so having that real world experience is really, really essential to rounding out your skills as you grow as a marketer.
Absolutely. And I had some amazing teachers while I was in college, but like you said, especially within marketing and then specific areas of marketing like social media and stuff like that, it's just ever changing. So it's hard to teach from just lectures and textbooks. So absolutely a new world of knowledge actually being out there in the real world and trying it.
Yeah. And one of the benefits that you get from trying it is that you get to figure out what you like most. And so
Yeah.
I know one of the things that you said that you were really good at was being able to figure out what your niche was before you entered, before you graduated and entered the real world. So what was kind of your process, or what advice do you have for someone who's like trying to figure out what exactly they want to do in marketing?
Yeah, definitely. I think the easiest way, if you could just like put it all on a whiteboard, is probably just starting big and then going more niche. So finding marketing internships. And I think now, it's harder to find something general like that. But it's also sometimes helpful if you are struggling getting an internship at like a big brand name company. A lot of times smaller companies, because they don't have as many people, will have more broad internships like marketing, and then you will get to try to do so many different things. I'm really lucky that early on in my career, I got to have internships that were either what would you call it, like kind of going around to the different departments, that type of setup.
Rotational.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Rotational, like a rotational internship. And then also for smaller companies where I really had to help everyone and I got to dip my foot into like everything there was. So that was definitely helpful. And I would give that advice of, if you know what you want to do, awesome, start there. If you don't like it, pivot. But if you're really kind of lost of, I like marketing, or I think this is what I want to do, but I have no idea the niche I want to go into, I would highly recommend seeking out those rotational internships, or maybe an internship at a smaller, medium-sized company where you will get more opportunities to talk with people from different departments and help them out on projects.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to point out with your career is that you started at smaller companies before you went on to the bigger companies. And a while back, I interviewed Adelie Gimmel. She does social media for Vogue. And I thought that it was really interesting that she had such a similar story where a lot of times when a lot of people sometimes have a dream company, they want to work for this big company, and they think that the first internship like has to be at that company, or else like there's no way that they're going to end up there. And so I think it's important to understand that you could start at these smaller companies, you could get experience, and a lot of times you can get more experience at a smaller company than you would at a bigger company, because the smaller companies need like all the help they can. There's not like very specific roles for every area in marketing. And then I think it allowed you too to get that experience that eventually allowed you to get hired at some of the bigger, more corporate companies.
Yes, 100% agree. It's amazing to start with those smaller, medium-sized companies just for trying out what you like and what you don't like. And if I'm being honest as well, like I've had experience with big company internships and small company internships. And I remember when I was job hunting, like after graduation, and I would be doing interviews and they would be looking through my resume and asking questions, they would always go back to those big name companies and ask me those questions. And to be honest, I learned the most from the smaller companies, the medium-sized companies. And it's natural for people to want to ask you things about those bigger names because they're curious. But the reality is, like, I hope that job seekers know this, and also people who are hiring for jobs, people get so much more hands-on experience and learn so much more, not just about the work, but themselves and like their strengths that they have and the weaknesses that they have at those smaller companies. And I found when I was doing those interviews, I was like, yeah, this big company is great, but what I did at the small company was actually really impressive. So, and I also understand, especially when you're in college or recently graduated, I myself definitely compared myself to others who were getting internships or jobs at these really big, well-known brand name companies. And that's something that I've had to learn as well. Like, just because there's a big name doesn't mean you're learning more or less. It's just a different setup. And so something else besides the actual work that I was learning while I was doing my internships were how companies were set up and what I liked and what I didn't like. Some people absolutely thrive at those huge companies, and some people, it really doesn't work for them and their working style. And that's just something on top of the work that's so important to learn while you're going through internships and companies. And there's no right or wrong way. It's just what works for you.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, sometimes the best way to figure out what you like is by eliminating what you don't like. And so
absolutely, yeah,
doing those internships and being like, maybe I don't like the small company structure, or I don't like the big corporate structure, or I don't like a boss that, is really detailed about my work, or you get to figure out all these things. And I mean, I ended up in marketing, but I thought I wanted to be a doctor and then a lawyer and then in finance. And I did internships in all those areas and just got to cross them off my list instead of like waiting and then getting a degree and doing something and then figuring out later. And so, yeah, it's a great way to eliminate what you don't like to do.
Absolutely. It always gets you closer to the place that you want to be, for sure.
Yes. Okay. So the 11 internships, I'm never going to forget that. I'm going to see if I can ever find anybody who tops that number, because that's amazing.
Yes. Intern girl here.
Intern girl. Yes. Okay. So you graduated college, you had a ton of experience underneath your belt, and your first full-time job out of college was as a social and digital experience coordinator at Taco Bell, also a really cool company. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience working for Taco Bell?
Absolutely. So yeah, I graduated and I was looking for jobs, and obviously Taco Bell is huge brand name, but also beyond that, they just do so much interesting work and cutting edge stuff, whether it be campaigns or partnerships or the things that they come out with. And just from my education and my real world experience, absolute dream. So I applied there. I did some networking as well and found out that someone who was working there had worked at a past company that I had interned with. So I reached out to her. I was like, hey, would you tell me, like, is Taco Bell very similar to this other company structure? Because we both worked at that company and I really did enjoy that company. So I just wanted to know like the comparison of the two. And she told me all about it. And I was applying for this one job and she was like, I looked at your resume. I really think you'd be good for this other one. And it was social and digital experience coordinator. And so I thought I'd throw my resume in the hat for that as well. It was a long interview process. And of course, I'm applying during the time that everyone around the country is applying because kids are graduating. And so everyone is sending in their resumes. So it was a very long process, like a few months. And of course, I was just checking my email like so often, like, oh my gosh, annoying the HR person. But yeah, ended up getting that job there. Absolute dream. One of the, after I started working there, they told me, a few of the reasons that they decided to give the job to me. One of those reasons was because of my many internships, but also because out of those internships, I did have a lot of agency experience, and being in-house at you work with a lot of agencies. So to be able to have that side of it, so I could communicate with the agency, knowing that I had already been on that side, was super important. So like you were saying before, even if you don't start off at your number one dream company or something like that, think of ways that you could apply for jobs or do an internship that would be of value to them. So for me, it was working with agencies, and they work with agencies a lot. So I got that job there, and I was very, very grateful for it. And it was honestly the best job I could have had straight out of college, because I got to touch so many different things. I remember when I first got the job, when I was applying, I was like, I don't know, like, am I going to get bored just working on tacos and burritos? And that was absolutely not the case. We worked on so many amazing, cool activations that were outside space. And that was really important in the growth of my career, because being able to touch all those things and work with so many different departments on different activations and again was teaching me like my strengths, my weaknesses, what I liked, what I didn't like, which is so important in the beginning of your careers, to just focus on yourself and that growth, and making sure that you're taking something away from everything that you do. So yeah, that was my first role there, and I was there for 3 years. I got promoted a few times, and I became strategist there, and then I also spearheaded their first analytics process, because they didn't have a social media analytics process. So I created that while I was there. Yeah, it was really cool. So there's a lot of things that I had a hand in or got to lead from a social perspective that are really special to me, that I can take away, and then also that they still use today. So definitely an amazing experience I had there.
That's incredible. I want to ask you one thing, because I know I did notice that you got promoted a lot at that company. You had 3 positions in 2 years while you were there, which is I think a really fast time to get promoted. And so do you have any like tips or advice for maybe someone right now that's at a job and they want to get promoted more quickly? anything you could share there?
Yeah, so Taco Bell, my current company, and a few companies that I had the pleasure working for have a very well formulated, I guess you could kind of call it promotion track, where basically, at the beginning of every year or quarter or whatever it may be, you outline all the things that you're going to achieve, all the things that your company wants you to achieve. So both your employer and yourself know, like, okay, if I check off all these things, I'm on the track for a promotion. So definitely companies that do that are really helpful, because then you're super clear on what's going to get you to where you want to go. And if you're at a company that doesn't do that, then I totally recommend just sitting down with your supervisor and making one yourself, being like, hey, what's it going to take for me to get to the next step, whether it be a promotion or a level bump or whatever, and just list out the things that you can complete in a year or quarter or whatever, just so you have it all on paper, and then everyone's on the same page of your expectations. That's something that I always like to bring up, whether there is a formulated process or not. With my supervisor when I first start a job, obviously I'm in the process of onboarding and everything, but I want to make sure that from day one, I know what my expectations are, and my supervisor and the company are aligned with that, and we know what it's going to look like when I excel or when I get a next level or something like that.
That is such good advice. And I wish more people knew that. And I wish I knew that when I started my career, because I was at a company that did not have a formal structure. And I was always asking, and being told things, and it never really lined up. And so I think the key things that you hit on was that you want to outline it with your boss, so you both have like this mutual buy-in on what the strategy and outcome is. And then the second thing is that it's written in an email,
exactly.
A confirmation, there's some type of like thing. And, in your one-on-ones with your boss, you could go over like how you're progressing on those items. But those two things of getting mutual buy-in with your boss and then having it written out are so valuable. And if you do ask for a promotion and you get told no, then also do one of those things of like, great, how do I get there? Then what do I need to do? Because I think that's awesome that your companies do that, but I know smaller companies won't have that, typically don't have that structure.
Right, exactly. Communication is key, and always get everything in writing.
Yes. And then my totally unrelated Taco Bell, Doja Cat and Mexican pizza. Did you get a Mexican pizza?
That's so funny. I had left Taco Bell by the time they brought the Mexican pizza back, but I was there when they first started talking about, first of all, I was there when they took away the Mexican pizza. So that was a whole thing. So that definitely improved my social listening and analytics skills, getting all these tweets about why'd you take away the Mexican pizza? Yeah. So that was a pretty, again, like such a unique experience that I got to go through. So yeah, I was there when they took it away, and then I was also there where it's like, oh, we should probably bring this back. So I heard some rumblings before I left about Doja Cat and things like that. She changed, I remember when I was still there, she changed her Twitter handle so many times, like her name of just bring back the Mexican pizza. It was so funny. But she is a great example of the Taco Bell fans, because she acts just like them. You have all these people all day saying, bring back the Mexican pizza. And then you have this celebrity who's doing the same thing, just on a bigger scale. And that's something that is so unique to brands, is their face, whether it be a celebrity or not, and sure that you're gearing things to that fan base, which I think Taco Bell did a really great job of. But yeah, Doja Cat, pretty cool. Mexican pizza.
Yeah. And a good example, I guess, is like also you getting into the analytics side of like, well, people really want the Mexican pizza back. And then the way they did it, I like Doja Cat, but I'm not like anything crazy. I don't follow her on Instagram, but I saw her. I never forget the TikTok video of her rap for the Mexican pizza. And growing up, every year on my birthday, I wanted a Taco Bell Mexican pizza for my birthday lunch. Every year growing up, that was like, whatever reason, that was like my favorite thing that I always wanted. And then, as I grew up, I grew out of like craving Mexican pizzas as much. But then, when she got it back, when Taco Bell brought it back, I went with my little sister. We went to Taco Bell together and we each got a Mexican.
That's awesome. And I think that's such a good example of with Taco Bell and with other brands I've worked with, there is that nostalgia that goes along with it, especially for brands that have been around for so long. And playing into that was a really big deal at Taco Bell and for other brands as well. Like a lot of people or a lot of brands do that, of playing into the nostalgia, whether it's trendy or just because it like pulls on your heartstrings. And maybe you're not super into the Mexican pizza right now, but you remember when you did it every year when you were younger, so it holds that special place in your heart.
Yeah, it was really cool, and that they made a really big deal about them bringing it back too. But yeah, awesome. Okay, Taco Bell, big chunk of your career. You did some awesome work there, and then you went over to Shutterfly, and you were their Senior Growth Innovation Channel Manager. That is a lengthy title, so
it is.
Tell me a little bit about that role.
So towards the end of my time at Taco Bell, I created their social media analytics process and making sure that we were tracking all of the social media that was going out, what was doing well, what wasn't doing well, how we even defined what it means to do well. So I really love that aspect of it. And, going back to what I said before, going through jobs and realizing what you like, what you don't like, where your strengths are, where you want to develop. That was something that I really loved. So Shutterfly approached me with an opportunity about their growth innovation role, which was basically I got to oversee everything that was going on in marketing and see how we can improve certain things, how we can come up with a new idea just to test it. I absolutely love the space of just testing things and measuring things, because you never know until you try. And especially in social media and digital, things are always changing. So during my role there, I got to work super close with the paid social team, and then also the organic social team and our website team, and just try new ways of like how things are going to work, different processes to actually create things on Shutterfly, different processes to feed out the social media, what was clicking with people, what wasn't. And we had so many ideas that were just kind of on the back burner that they needed a team for, and that they needed people for to actually go and act and try them out. It's awesome to have, these great ideas, but if they're just sitting there, then nothing really happens. And I think a lot of companies get caught up in the fact that they haven't completely cracked the code of like, they have this good idea, but they don't know the perfect way to execute. And if you never at least try, then it's just going to be too late and you're not going to be able to test it out. So that was something that was really amazing about Shutterfly, and my position there allowed me to just test different ways to do things and measure things. And I also got to work on some fun campaigns while I was there. So it definitely was a really important and exciting role, because I evolved from what I really loved at Taco Bell to getting to do that full time. So that was super special.
And I want to clarify one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this growth innovation piece that was in your title, when you typically see that at companies, it's the experimental team, right? It's the team that's like trying new and different things. And like sometimes it's a little bit separated from maybe like the normal marketing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, different at every company. At Shutterfly specifically, I was still under the marketing department. However, you're right, I had a dotted line to a bunch of different teams because I kind of just floated around testing things for different teams. And then when it came to marketing meetings, then I got to speak on behalf of all the things that were tested across the different teams. But we always had marketing, sometimes operations, but mostly marketing as our kind of North Star in whatever we were doing. We wanted certain KPIs to be hit. So yeah, that's another reason why it was a really cool role, because I got to work very closely with teams that I had never had the opportunity to before.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, that growth and innovation. So if you see that, because I know that I worked on the innovation team too.
Oh, nice.
Company, but I always thought like my boss almost like that it was like a made up thing, or like, is this really like a thing that happens? And we were always like running our own like experiments and things like that at the company. And yeah, it related to marketing. But now I see those titles more frequently now. I feel like they didn't always used to be a thing at companies, but now I'm seeing like growth marketing intern and things like that more frequently?
It's definitely something that's still, I feel, is like brand new. It was the first role that they created at Shutterfly for growth innovation. And like you said, I see so many companies now creating those roles for their own departments, because there are so many different things that you could be doing and people get overwhelmed sometimes, and you need those designated people or designated team or teams to just run full speed ahead and try it out.
Yeah. And it's a different type of, I know, remember our team, we were always like not crazy, but like bold. Like we, like, you know, everybody was there like laying to their channels, but like the innovation and growth team, I feel like it's really fun because you get to be very innovative and always like throwing out different ideas and doing things for the first time, which I always love. And now I have an entrepreneur, so obviously like that passion, you know, it took me to where I am now, but I think it's a really fun team to be on if that's like your personality, if you are, you know, innovative, if you like trying new things, if you like coming up with new ideas, and yeah, it's a great place to be.
Absolutely. And you touched on the entrepreneurial aspect of it too. I feel like I meet a lot of people who, especially in this day and age where there's so many people who just are entrepreneurs, or they're their own boss, they work for themselves, they're a content creator. They struggle between, you know, do I want to work for a corporate company or do I want to do my own thing? And whether that means working for themselves or creating their own company. And I think you touched on it, like looking for those growth roles, you know, they're bold, they're out of the box. You honestly have less rules sometimes because you get to just like try new things. I think that's a great place to start if you're kind of stuck in the middle and don't know which way to go. It's a great place to test out if you like working with a team in a corporate environment, but you still get that entrepreneurial aspect to it.
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that title.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess bringing the story to where you are now, which is at Canva. So you are you are the social media manager of campaigns at Canva. So can you tell us a little bit about what your role looks like today?
Absolutely. So I have always had a soft spot for social media, as you can see throughout my resume, and loved what I was doing at Shutterfly. I was missing that social media feet on the ground aspect of it. Loved measuring and trying new things, but my passion was really on the social media front. And with Canva, it's such an amazing company. It's still, you know, fairly new, obviously newer than Shutterfly or Taco Bell, and so focused on the tech side of things. And I have been a huge fan of Canva ever since I first started college many years ago. We had to take classes. I was a PR and ad major, and so we had to take classes of Photoshop and InDesign to create different marketing tools. And I remember I just couldn't get it. It just wasn't clicking in my head. I wasn't mastering it. And when it finally took me multiple hours to do something, I wasn't even happy with my work. It didn't speak to me or anything like that. And it discouraged me. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'm just not a creative person. And I forget how I discovered Canva. I was probably like so desperate the night before a project was due, like what's an EA for Photoshop or InDesign? And I came across Canva and absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was how so many things should be, just easy and user-friendly, and also just so inspirational and fun. You know, it's one thing to make it easy, but it's another thing to actually be inspired to create exactly what you found in your head and get it onto paper or screen rather. So I've loved Canva and used Canva for a really long time. And I love how how in the past and still today, you know, it's empowered me in my creative side, which is something that, you know, I didn't think that I had because I wasn't grasping other platforms. So
I'm glad you said that about the not getting Photoshop and like feeling like you're not creative, because I've felt that pain too. I don't know if anybody else has tried to learn like Photoshop and Adobe, like InDesign and all those like tools that are out there. And I know some girls that like they're amazing on it. They can design the most beautiful things and they have this extraordinary talent for it. And it always felt so out of reach where it's like either I can do it like them, which I can't, or I'm just not creative at all. And so Canva is definitely like it makes anybody like can have those creative skills. Like it's amazing. I've tried learning Photoshop after I started using Canva and I was just like, it's not worth my time. I could do 80% of what I could do in Photoshop and Canva Yeah. So I'm glad you touched on that too. You can still be creative if you can't use Photoshop.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm glad that you had that same experience and it wasn't just me. Hopefully some listeners also had that same experience. And awesome for all the people out there who grasped Photoshop and InDesign, like amazing. Not all of us are like that. So yeah, amazing to be able to work for a company that I have used for a while and that I truly believe in. And so I am a social media manager there. So campaigns that come out, whether it be a brand campaign or a new product launch or being a part of cultural moments such as like holidays and stuff like that, I get to work on from a social media perspective. So I work with multiple channel managers, whether it be email or television or whatnot. And we all get briefed on what campaign is going to come out there and we just execute it based on our platform. So it's been super amazing because Canva, as we were talking about before, comes out with so many amazing features and has a lot of really great partnerships and brand campaigns. So to be able to execute that from a social lens is just something that's so exciting to me. And being able to work with social media specifically, there's always something changing in social media. There's always new updates or new features on every platform. So being able to kind of mix and match of, oh, I think this campaign would be best executed with this idea on this platform is just like a really fun game for me that I have gotten to turn into a career. So it's perfect.
Yes. And I'm sensing that thread across of that analytical mindset that you bring to social media. And I want to touch on that one more time because you are not the first person that I've seen that's been really successful at social media have this thread of analytics be their strength throughout all of their roles. And I think we often, look at social media as a very just like, oh, creative, and you post on Instagram and TikTok, and it's, it's just about creating and posting content. But the analytics part is so, so important. And obviously it's been a theme throughout your career. Do you have any advice for someone of like how to, or if I know you could share about social media analytics or what they could do to strengthen their skills in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it's a really important part of working in social media is having that balance of like left brain, right brain, creative, analytical, because, at the end of the day, it's social media is so much fun and we get to create so many cool things, but we are working for brands, which means we have business purposes and we want to be able to communicate things effectively to our fans or people who we want to be our customers. So that analytical aspect is definitely really important when it comes to the end goal. And, different platforms have different analytical features. You can go directly onto Instagram or TikTok or whatnot. And I think they're definitely improving. But I also have used third-party platforms in the past that have been super helpful. Sprout Social is probably the most popular that I've used at multiple companies I've been at, but there are also like Workforce has its own and NetBase has its own as well. So there are a bunch out there, but I have definitely found that, when you look at the analytics, whether it be what people are saying and the net sentiment about how they feel about your brand, or just strictly the numbers of how many engagements it's got, when you apply those to your next campaign, your post, it's so hard for you not to do at least a little better each time. And it's because, those aren't just numbers. Those are real people and real fans who decided to say something or not say something. And okay, no one engaged with it. It's not really touching on, it's not really connecting with people, or, oh my gosh, all these people are saying something. And sometimes it's good and you're like, great. And sometimes it's negative and you're like, oh my gosh, well, at least they said something, so I don't do this next time. So yeah, it's so important to be able to look at and always find new ways to execute things on social media based on the analytics.
Yeah. And I think if you are someone that has social media experience or looking to get some, if you are doing a future internship in marketing, now you know to pay extra attention to analytics and try to use that to drive decisions on content, and not just doing I feel like I've asked this question in interviews of like, what advice would you give for social media? And a lot of it is influenced based off of trends, but to also influence those decisions on what's actually happening like on your platform and with your unique audience. And so even doing things like adding numbers to your social media experience is a really great way to showcase some of that analytic skills.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And it also, I feel like in the past, because social media teams and managers are still fairly new, I feel like there's always these like jokes on LinkedIn or something where people are like, oh, there's the social media intern running the Twitter. And it's like, it's not like that at all anymore. Like there are huge teams that run these big brand social media platforms, and social media is such an important marketing tool. And I'm glad that more brands and, people who are in C-suite and powerful decision making positions are realizing that, because it takes a village to run social media, and every job is a full-time job. Analytics is also a full-time job, and the influencer space and the posting takes so much time. So that's something that is definitely at least going in the right direction of people understanding that. And whether you're the one who is doing the analytics and the posting and everything at once, which I hope you're not. And if you are, you out there. But even if you're not, it's so important to know those different areas so you can best communicate with other people of like, oh, hey, I do know this, or ask the right questions to them. And, if you can understand someone else's job, you can always communicate with them a lot better and get to the end goal a lot quicker and more effectively. So yeah, numbers are just super important and really need to go hand in hand with all the creative that goes out there.
Beautiful. Amazing advice. I love it. Okay. So analytics are incredibly important if you didn't get that from everything that we've been talking about in this episode. One of the things I want to ask you as a social media manager is just your thoughts on everything that's been changing lately, because I feel like we've seen a huge shift with TikTok becoming so popular. The Instagram algorithm just seems to like ever be changing as they're trying to catch up. What are your thoughts right now? And I don't know how much you guys use Pinterest too. One of the things I've been seeing too is like Pinterest is now like putting their hand in the ring with like all of this incentives for creators to post. So yeah, what is your take on all of that? I know it's a broad question, but
no, I know. I'm like, where do I start? I have so many opinions, but I want to be fair to all the social platforms. So yes, I think just across the board, video is king right now. TikTok is obviously based in video, and that's why it's so successful. And then Instagram, also historically known as, taking little from other platforms.
Always Snapchat stories. Now we got always Reels.
And now, they're really pushing their Reels and prioritizing that. And now Facebook has stories as well. Anyways, it's just video is definitely king right now. And I think that's why TikTok is so successful. But on top of that, because I feel like, over the years and the rise of social media, there have probably been hundreds of different social media apps that have tried to reach the level of, the main ones, right? And they just have never gotten there. And TikTok is the newest one that like really got up there and honestly blew the others out of the water for a little bit, because it's like the top right now.
Yeah, and they were all comfortable thinking like no one could touch them.
Yeah.
But I don't even think like Instagram gave TikTok like a thought. They were like, oh, it'll just be like a COVID trend. And then, like all other new social media apps, it'll just like disappear.
Totally. And the TikTok was the little engine that could and did and took over. And something that's also so interesting about TikTok is it has its own personality that is so different from the others. Like it is so organic and raw and just like, I don't want to say low quality, but it's just like someone quickly takes out their phone, films their opinion or like a funny joke, and then posts it without a second thought. Mm-hmm. And Instagram is historically known as a very highly curated platform. And I just think that I think one of the many reasons that TikTok succeeded so well is because people needed a break from that. And TikTok was a breath of fresh air. And that's something that is just so important when creating social media platforms, but also when you get a job, you want to be a breath of fresh air to a company, you want to bring new ideas. So it's just something that was so obvious that needed to happen, and TikTok knew exactly how to do it. And that's why they succeeded so much. And, obviously Instagram's not going anywhere. It's very successful, and different generations geared towards different platforms. And at least for the time being, there will be a big generation that still wants to be on that platform. And Instagram's, as much as I make fun of it for kind of, taking ideas from other platforms, they're staying up to date and they're staying in the game, and they're they're changing so quickly and adapting, and I have to give it props for that. So I could go on and on about my opinions on all the social platforms, but I guess key takeaway is, video is key right now. And I'm excited to see what all the platforms are going to do to not only keep up with that, but anticipate what's going to be the next big thing after that. And I think everyone's obviously trying to come for TikTok right now, come for that throne. So I'm super excited to see what the other platforms do and how this space is going to be changing.
Yeah, video is definitely a big one. And then I think the other piece that all the platforms took advantage of is that they never rewarded the creators. It was always about ads. It was always about, like, they never thought to do anything for the creators. And TikTok, I felt like, was also the first platform that, they did so much creator funds, gift boxes for the top creators, events for the top creators. And, maybe Instagram did that on some level for like the very, very, 1 or half percenters. But I thought that was another really cool thing that kind of ties in with how they are more like seemingly like casual and authentic, because it's less curated. I know that what's worked best for me on TikTok is if I just sit down and I give marketing advice for 30 seconds without editing. I don't no research. If I do research on something, it won't perform as well. It'll just sit down and talk. And those always are the best videos. And so I really do love that about TikTok.
Always. And, obviously I don't know the back end of their algorithm, but I feel like they have a really great algorithm in comparison to maybe Instagram or something. I mean, I always feel like my For You page is just like for me. Like, it's like they like
scary. It's a little scary. Yeah.
It is a little scary. It's wild how just on the nose it is about everything. And even my opinions, like if you get a TikTok about like someone liking a store that you like, oh my God, I hate this store. You go to the comments and all the comments are like, oh my God, I don't like this store either. And it's like, even if I get a video that's seemingly like not to my opinions, I know the comments are going to come through for me. And it's bizarre. So I want to know so much more about that algorithm. It's probably a bit over my head, but the creator fund is amazing. And like you mentioned before, Pinterest is really going after creators as well. I feel like I get so many, admittedly, I'm on TikTok the most out of any social media platform. And so I get so many TikToks recently about creators trying to teach other people how to make money off of Instagram as a creator and like making UGC for companies and stuff like that. And
we're getting the same feeds.
Yes,
I get all that UGC Pinterest. I get all the trends. I get people ranting about how their Instagram engagement is just like dropping like crazy. It's insane. Yeah,
it's so crazy. And it's also kind of like a chaotic space in the sense that all these social platforms are feeding off of each other and like, oh, that one did this, so I'm going to do the opposite, or that one did this, I need to do the same thing but better. And it's such an interesting space, and I'm really happy to be in it. And sometimes it's like overwhelming, but in the best way. I do need to limit my screen time though. I try to say, no, I'm in social media, it's my job, but like I go deep into stuff. So
yeah, it's tough. I put the timers where you can set like how many hours you're allowed to use. And my boyfriend gives me like a hard time all the time because I'm always just like dismiss.
Ignore.
Yeah. Boundaries could definitely be a lot better. But yeah, I think we wrapped up. We covered just about everything. My last question for you, Lauren, is if you have any last piece of advice for women in marketing.
Yeah, big question. Let's see. Definitely, as I was mentioning before, just try everything you can when it comes to the types of jobs or the types of companies, and just try it out. Don't get caught up as much. I know it's easier said than done, but don't get caught up in like brand names. Obviously, you should work for a company that you believe in and that you like the product and everything like that. But you can always work your way up to your dream job. Your dream job doesn't have to happen right out of college. And I think people will be a lot happier trying new things versus saying, this is what I want and going straight for it. Because sometimes you find out that it's not. So definitely exploring all the different avenues. Something else I like to say, and especially for women, always speaking up about, any ideas that you have, or if you don't think maybe something is being done the right way. Like, I know it's really scary sometimes to go against the grain, but also speak up. There's so I feel like a lot of times people, especially women, get imposter syndrome, which I do as well. But you always just have to remember, I'm here for a reason and I produce great work. That's how I've gotten here. And always having a reason to say something is enough. Like if you have an idea, that's a reason enough to say something. Or if you heard, some analytics about something not performing well and someone keeps wanting to do it, that's reason enough to speak up. And sometimes, your ideas won't perform like you thought they would, but at least you tried. And 9 times out of 10, companies are going to prioritize the people who at least tried to do something more than the people who only wanted to get things right 100% of the time, because then you're not going to move forward company, you're not going to move that mark. It's always better to try and fail than not do anything at all. And that's what's going to set you apart from everyone. And then, lastly is what I always like to tell people is just, be a good human and help others. I always love networking on LinkedIn and in real life and other social platforms and finding out about what other people are doing and being transparent about what it's like to work for companies or how much you're getting paid and stuff like that. I think it's so important, especially for women, for that communication space to be held within our industries, which is, again, goes to you. So amazing that you're doing this and doing this podcast and interviewing people from all different places and speaking on their experience and what it's like and helping others. So I'll just end with thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for being a part of it as well. I only get to share these stories if people agree to share them. And so I really appreciate you coming on and letting us dive through your whole career journey, especially even just that last part that you said there was so helpful. And you touched on so many good things. I feel like we could keep talking forever, but I know, but we'll end it because we're gonna end it here. But thank you again so much, Lauren. It was so great talking to you today.
Yes, thank you so much, Natalie. It's been a pleasure.